boss said, "You're not coming to work on Monday," or something like that. And then the last boss would have been the governor, but I never heard from him.
I think that would be the hardest part, is the isolation.
Yeah.
Be an X-ray tech. That's it.
Photons go from the tube, they explode everywhere, scatter everywhere.
Is it closer to the AC joint or the?
I haven't taken that class yet, I can tell you.
But we never expose each other to radiation. That's like the cardinal paramount rule.
Welcome back to BroncoTales, Season 2, Episode 3. I'd like to welcome you all here. Our first guest, Laura, is currently in the diagnostic radiology program, planning to graduate in May of 2026, and planning to explore advanced modalities after graduation. Our second guest on the show, Kendall. Kendall grew up in Vancouver, Washington, before moving to Boise State. Originally, Kendall wanted to play a sport in college, but after an injury, decided to switch to healthcare, along with some experiences she had. She is also on track to graduate in May of 2026, and looking forward to pursuing further education or expanding her knowledge in radiologic science. I'd like to welcome our third guest, Douglas, to the show. Douglas has a vast background in academic spaces, from museums to prisons, and holds a bachelor's in history from the University of Pittsburgh, a master's in teaching from the University of Southern California, and is currently an adjunct professor here at Boise State, and a student in the Radiologic Science Department.
And impeccably dressed. For those who can't see us right now.
We're not worthy. Major accolades and credentials.
And our last guest, Dave. Originally from Denver, Dave moved here to pursue an opportunity to teach in this past July.
I did.
As well as online imaging science baccalaureate, and looking forward to starting his master's next year.
Correct. I'll be starting a master's in education over the summer semester, and so.
Yeah. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're happy to be
Happy
here.
Mm-hmm.
So I teach these guys. So I'm one of the professors for the Radiologic Sciences program, and so these are some of the first year cohort, and we all decided to get together and give this a shot. So I think everybody's history is super interesting, and I kind of want to talk about like how we all got on this path. Like, we're all here, all walks of life. Let's start with you. Like, what brought you to Boise State? How did you end up on the path for radiologic sciences?
Yeah, so I grew up here in Boise, and then I went to, or I guess let's start back when I knew I wanted to pursue healthcare. But in high school, I took an elective class. I think it was medical terminology or just some basic health class. And before then, I didn't really love school all that much. But then after taking this health class, I just found it super interesting, and like I wanted to learn and find out why the human body works the way it does, and I just found it super interesting. And then I started taking more healthcare classes. I took a CNA class and quickly learned I didn't want to be a CNA. But I liked how like the skills aspect and hands-on part of healthcare. And then I explored the radiology program at Boise State probably about 2 years ago. Kathy Masters, the program director, gave me a tour, and she told me about it and everything that is like amazing about the program, and I just found it super interesting.
She's all right. She knows what to do.
Yeah.
I've
also-
We're gonna listen to her.
I've also had a bunch of x-rays and MRIs and stuff, and I found that the medical imaging team is super nice and not as scary as like nurses and stuff. They're not gonna make you get like blood draws or anything like that. It's just they're just there to help you, which I liked.
So I want to go one step further. In your intro, it was mentioned that you're interested in advanced modalities. Could you tell us, what a modality is, and then which advanced modality are you interested in?
Yeah, so a modality is, so we are all three of us are starting in diagnostic radiology, which is kind of like the baseline. And so there's a bunch of room to grow from there. And so I want to do the CT modality, and a modality is kind of like a way to grow, an extra certificate that you can get so that you can have like more job responsibilities at work. You can just learn extra things, extra machines. And so I want to be able to operate CT machines. And then I also think functional medicine is interesting.
That's cool.
And what's a CT machine? Which scan is that? Not what is it, but which scan for anyone who doesn't know?
I'm not super educated on it. I haven't. I'm just
can
yeah.
jump
Okay.
I'm happy to
Dave,
jump
come
in. So CT stands for computed tomography, and CT looks at the body in cross sections. So we can take slices of the body in different planes. We can look at it sideways. We can look at it from the side. We can look at it from the top. There's 3 different planes that we can look in for CT. And it's highly diagnostic. We get a lot of information, a lot of diagnostic information from one scan. And theoretically, you could go from head to toe and do a full body scan. But very commonly, we'll do like a chest abdomen or something along those lines. We can look at disease processes. We can look at functionality. We can administer contrast so we see soft tissue detail that we wouldn't normally see. CT is very fast-paced. It is high volume, super fast-paced. And doctors rely on it heavily for all types of diagnoses. So when you go to an emergency department for some type of injury or sickness, you're probably going to get a CT scan. It's a lot of bang for the buck.
When I had my appendix out, I had a CT scan. They didn't tell me about the contrast they're going to shoot into me, but
Yeah.
that'll be a story for another day, though.
Right. Some interesting side effects there.
Oh, yes.
Yes,
Oh,
indeed.
yes.
All right, so take over here. What put you on this path?
What put me on this path?
And we got a little bit about your background from the introduction.
Yeah.
You have a very interesting, wide range of things you've done.
Yeah, so I'm a child of the 80s and 90s, and I feel like the heroes we grew up with in movies and in books were these multifaceted people. Probably the best example is Indiana Jones. He can speak 20 different languages. I'll get close to the mic. He can speak 20 different languages. He's an archaeologist. He can fly a plane but can't land it. He can do a whole bunch of things. So that was a big inspiration for me.
Got that.
Yeah, fly but can't land it. So my last big career was working in museums, and that's what landed me out here in Idaho to work at the Idaho State Museum. And that was coincidentally right when COVID hit. In fact, I remember my conversation on Friday from my boss, "You're not coming to work on Monday." Then her boss said, "You are coming to work on Monday." Then her boss said, "You're not coming to work on Monday," or something like that. And then the last boss would have been the governor, but I never heard from him.
That would have been really cool, though.
That would have been cool, yeah. So museums are fantastic places to work and to go to, but they're very vulnerable to shifts in the economy. And so the future of museums still is a bit tenuous. And I was talking to a friend of mine, she's a doctor. She works up in Spokane, and she said, be an x-ray tech. And that's it.
And you said, "What's that?"
The rest is basically history after that. So no, I did research into it, and then I saw there's a bunch of modalities. Radiation therapy was probably what I was interested in the most, but I learned that there are pathways to get there. And so I explored opportunities all around the country, all the way to Florida, and things led me back here to Boise, and here I am in the X-ray Tech program.
It's a highly rated program. It's probably in the top 5 in the country if I had to hazard a guess.
That's what Google told me.
We have one of the best. We
That's why you're here.
have one of the best programs in the country. So we hold our students to very high standards, and they always meet them. You guys are amazing. Kendall.
Okay, so I originally wanted to go into business and play a sport in college. I played volleyball, but I fractured my spine when I was like 15, and I actually had a really bad experience with like my like x-ray techs and my nurses. They weren't very nice, and like then from there I went and I got to help our like school trainer with like the athletes, and I got to like learn more about that, and I found it really interesting. And so that made me want to go into healthcare, and also like having such a bad experience, like I realized how much that like little interaction can like make or break someone's day or like someone's injury. And so that also really made me want to go into healthcare and like be someone that'll make someone happy and not sad when they're already injured.
Yeah.
And then I kind of just ended up in Boise. I'm from Washington, so not too far. And there's not a lot of schools that do radiology. And I really wanted to do imaging over nursing because it's like a lot more like critical thinking. Like we talk about in lab, it's like a trauma situation comes in and it's like, oh, how do I position them? Like it's a lot more like you're always thinking, always like problem solving. And so I found that really cool. So,
Really appealing.
now
Yeah,
I'm here.
we're big critical thinkers. We have to think on our feet, make decisions quickly, because things are rarely perfect, right? So we're always trying to problem solve and figure things out.
Yeah.
But one thing that I find very interesting about you, Kendall, is that I'm from Denver originally, and then I moved. I trained. I did my X-ray training in Denver, in Colorado, and I've been a tech for 15 years. I moved to Portland in 2013, and then I lived in the Pacific Northwest for 11 years, and then the opportunity to teach at Boise State came up, and when the department had somebody as knowledgeable and highly regarded as ours, she literally wrote our positioning textbook. She wrote the book on positioning. Like,
Kathy did?
no,
Oh.
Leslie.
Oh.
Leslie wrote our textbook.
I didn't know that.
She did.
That's crazy.
Yeah, next time you have your positioning book out, her name's right on the front. She's been contributing to textbooks for years, like since I was in X-ray school. Like I've seen her name as far back as 2009 when I was in X-ray school. So when an opportunity like this came up, and someone of that caliber is like, "We want you to come and work for us," I couldn't say no. I couldn't. I mean, I was doing well in X-ray with a reputable employer, and but I was ready for a change. Like, I think I can do this. So we pulled up stakes and moved from Washington to Boise. And the funny thing is, that going back to what's interesting about you and I, is we lived just in the next town north.
Yeah.
You lived just in the next town north. So we grew up like in each other's backyards, kind of. And another fun fact, like for those of you that have seen Napoleon Dynamite, I'm sure everybody knows that movie.
Yeah.
He lives, John
lives
Heater, the
right by
actor,
me.
lives in that town, in the town
He
that Kendall
lives like, I'm
lives
not
in.
kidding, like probably less than a quarter mile away from me.
Did you ever meet him?
No, but people always see him at like Safeway, but I don't shop at Safeway, so. But I guess that's where he shops.
I'm sorry I missed out.
I hope I don't.
I bet he gets it all the time, like people come up and do impressions.
Yeah, he like goes to the churches in our town, so a lot of people that go to church will see him, but. It's pretty
Yeah, that's
cool.
really cool. Fun fact.
Mhm.
So.
It is a fun fact. That's like the only famous person by where I live. That's it.
Yeah. So, yeah, what else can we talk about?
What's been your favorite class so far?
Ooh, I like the labs because I feel like we like get to know each other and like get to be hands-on because we talk about like some of our lecture classes, like the things you need to know for our registration exam. It's a little bit different when you're like actually working and positioning someone, so it's fun to like be in the labs and have hands-on experience and see how it's a little bit different than what the textbook says.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the labs are, it's really great that the way the program is structured, that you get the information, like the initial textbook information upstairs in lecture, and then you have the opportunity a day or two later to come down into our positioning lab. We have full labs with energized X-ray tubes. We can take images, we can manipulate the equipment, we position each other, although we never expose each other to radiation. That's like the cardinal paramount rule, is we never expose one another or ourselves. But we're able to put those principles directly into practice in the lab. We have positioning labs, so you guys are able to get hands-on with positioning each other, which is great. And then we have principles labs too, where you're able to take all that physics knowledge and then put it into practice. And like whatever, like we were working on grids this week, so we had a couple of labs on how radiographic grids work and some of the problems that can arise when they're not used properly, or all that kind of stuff. So I love the way that this program is structured, in that we reinforce the theoretical knowledge almost immediately, and then you'll get to do the same thing when you go out to clinicals. So they get to start clinical rotations in the spring. I'm also the clinical coordinator for the program, that's a pretty big job, and I'm still figuring that out. being new to faculty and then the administrative role. It's a lot to learn, but that's really where the rubber meets the road for radiography students or any allied health science student. You learn everything in clinic. You learn the job, being hands-on with actual patients in a real setting, in a real hospital, in a real clinic, with real equipment. You guys are going to learn so much. I'm really excited for you. I told the cohorts earlier today that I'm really excited for you to get started in clinic, and I'm anxious to hear what your experiences are like from the get-go. Mm-hmm. So that's what I remember in my own training. We started clinicals 2 weeks into our program, like almost immediately, and that's really where I was like, okay, I think I can make sense of this stuff. I think I can do this. So I'm really excited for you.
Me too.
I like how for clinicals we will work at like a smaller location and a big hospital and somewhere that's a commute, and so it's really cool that you kind of get the full picture of everything you could be doing.
Right. That's a good point. We want to provide an equitable experience for all of our students. It might not be equal because that's impossible. We can't possibly give you all an equal experience, but we will make sure that you have a smaller clinic where you can get skills for patient care, like taking blood pressures, that kind of thing. And then we make sure that you get a big hospital experience because there's so many different facets of being a technologist in a hospital. We have fluoroscopy, which is live x-ray. We can watch people swallow things and then follow the contrast through their stomachs and whatever. Then we have portables. We have machines that we take around the hospital. We can drive it. It's on wheels. X-ray tube comes off. We can do our image. And we have surgery possibilities. So we're in surgery as well, where we have a machine called a C-arm. And we help surgeons with orthopedic studies, with gallbladders, with all kinds of things, vascular studies. We are in the OR. We have a presence there. We have a presence in emergency departments. Let's see, what else? We've got, I feel like I'm missing something. And then we have like a main department too, where we bring inpatients from the hospital down, do whatever imaging needs to be done, and then they get brought back up to their room. Or as I said, we can go upstairs or wherever we need to go with that portable machine. So we get this whole range of experience, and we make sure that it's equitable so you guys all get the same well-rounded experience in clinic.
I feel like it's nice too because I think when you're doing those things, you have to try them to see what you like and see what you don't like.
Right?
Like I feel like I have an idea of what I will like and what I won't like, but I won't know until I'm there doing it. So I'm glad we get to do all the departments.
Yeah, you get a variety. And you'll figure out like, hey, I really like fluoro, or I really like ER, or I really like surgery. A lot of techs become designated surgery technologists, where that's mostly all they do. They just live in the OR. They get comfortable there. It's a whole different world. You guys are gonna love OR. It's wacky. I've seen some crazy stuff in OR.
I'm nervous for OR.
What are your favorite departments from your experiences?
I really liked OR. It's very challenging, and at first you really are a fish out of water because that's a surgeon's world. Everything's sterile. You can't touch anything. You have to know what you can and can't touch, where you can and can't be with the machine, and then you're dealing with a team of people that are trained specifically to deal with that environment. And imaging personnel we're usually outsiders of that environment, so we have to learn all these new skills and learn how to deal with all these new types of people, like sterile instruments, the sterile field, the sterile gowns, like everything's sterile when it comes to the immediate vicinity around the patient. And then there's sterile trays with all kinds of instruments that you can't touch. And so you have to, that's why I liked OR a lot, is because it's very challenging. But you get comfortable with it, like you become more comfortable, and then those people learn to trust you. Like, okay, he knows what he's doing, or she knows what she's doing. I can trust them now. So they might be a little bit wary at first, but you'll build that rapport, and that's why I liked it so much. I actually remember when I was a student, there was this one technologist that I worked with, and she struggled with OR quite a bit. And she was actually kind of mean to me because I was a student. So she was like, "You're just a student, you don't know anything." And there was this one surgery case where I came in and I kind of saved her. She was like, "I have no idea what this is, the C-arm, I can't find this setting or whatever." And I got in there and I did it, and she was super nice to me after that. Like, we actually became like kind of buddies after that, like, because I saved her in that OR case. Like, I'll never forget that. And she was from Scotland. So you know how I love to do accents, right? So her and I would always do like a Scottish accent. I'd be like, "Oh, hello, how are you doing?" Like, I can't help it. So it's in my nature to do accents. I've been doing it since I was a kid.
They make lab fun.
They do make lab fun, and we'll continue to do
Sometimes-
accents, right?
Yeah, sometimes if there's a lot of lecture in lab, it gets a little boring.
It's part of your accents are part of your grade.
Yeah, it spices it up. I like it.
So yeah,
Douglas, what about have you had a favorite class so far?
A favorite class so far.
Yeah.
It's been pretty wild going back to college because I graduated from college with my undergrad a long time ago, and so there's a different vibe, different atmosphere. It's tough to put my finger directly on it, but Dave and I have an interest that we share, and that's cars. And so when I was living in Los Angeles, working at museums, but I didn't have like 2 dimes to rub between my fingers. When it's time to fix the car, you go into YouTube, and YouTube teaches you how to fix the car. So working with, it would have been nicer for me to like practice working on a car before I had to work on a car when it mattered. And so a lot of the extra tech programs around the country start their techs off in I think 2 weeks after they start the program, they're in clinicals. And they're doing their thing. And it's kind of nice to be able to practice, make some mistakes within reason, before jumping in headfirst to an environment where it is really make it or break it. Right? You can't get like a B grade if you're a surgeon in a at a hospital. So my favorite class would probably be our work in the lab, manipulating the equipment, working with each other, getting ideas off of each other. One of the things I used to do was operate a movie theater projector. It was my very first career. And so this kind of reminds me of that, where there's the right way to do it and there's many wrong ways to do it. But when I worked in astronomy, I had the immense fortune of operating what's called a Tesla coil. So for all of you out there in like TV land, just YouTube search Tesla coil. Griffith Observatory Tesla coil, and you might actually see me on one of those videos.
Really?
But yeah,
I will check that out.
Yeah.
Tesla coils are cool, and we're not talking about cars.
No.
the Tesla cars.
No,
Make
not
that
cars.
distinction. That's way different.
No. Tesla coils are. I won't go into the description of what they are, but they're super cool. But they use the electromagnetic spectrum, and we're using some pretty gnarly X-rays to try to help some people out. So the short answer is the labs here on campus.
Labs are fun.
I feel like
We have a good time.
it's nice to get to know the other students because we're in lecture all day. We get like 15-minute breaks. We don't really get to talk to one another, so lab, it's really nice to talk to everyone and
Right.
have like a support system because I know it can get pretty strenuous in school.
And next semester in the spring, we're going to switch it all up, and you guys will all be in different sections, right? So you'll get to be with classmates that you haven't normally been able to interact with. So we'll keep that mixture fresh and going, so you'll have the opportunity all over again next semester to make new connections with other classmates that you don't normally get to see now. And that's one really cool thing about having like a cohort system, that you guys will make lifelong friends from being in this program. Like I know of people. I myself, I had kind of a weird cohort when I trained, and I didn't really keep in touch with anybody. There are a couple of people. My wife actually keeps in touch with one of my classmates more than I do, but we all sort of went our separate ways. But I know other cohorts have been really close, and you will form, if you haven't already, you'll form bonds that will last the rest of your lives, which is really cool.
Yeah, I like the size of our cohort a lot too, because like I've had the experience to be able to like talk to everybody in it, and it's cool because we're going to be in all of the same classes for the rest of our like bachelor's experience, and so it kind of forces us to talk to each other and become friends and like make study groups because we're all in it together, and we're not going to have any new students, so.
That's right. Yeah, you're locked into this group, for better or for worse. And that's kind of your work groups too. When you get out, when you pass your registries, and with extreme success, you'll have no problem passing your registries. But when you get out into the real workspace, you're going to be dealing with people that you really get along with, and then people that you might not get along with so well. So there's valuable lessons there too. Like, you have to deal with all types of people. But I wanted to jump on interests for a second. Like, you mentioned cars. I don't want to nerd out too much about cars, but just to be like, what makes you tick outside of everything that we've talked about, like the program and X-ray and all that stuff. But like in your personal life, what kind of stirs your soul?
I feel like just like spending time with friends. I think that's such a basic answer, but it's so true. Like, we do a lot of stuff together, just like small things. Especially, I think it's nice to like lean on one another. And we'll like do homework together, or go to the grocery store together, make dinner together, stuff like that. I feel like quality time with like friends is important.
It's a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
You guys, you didn't know each other before the program?
No, we met at
We met at
orientation.
Right. And here you are. That's great.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're the exact type of relationship that I'm talking about. Like, you guys will be buddies for a long, long time.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
We just went last night. Almost our whole cohort went to the hockey game together. 'Cause
Really?
We got free tickets. Yeah. We
That's-
had like 20 people
I
there.
think there's
from
like
our
25
cohort. Yeah.
tickets. Oh, but.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It's really fun.
Douglas, how about you?
I had a really good idea when I was a kid, and that is I should really spend a lot of time thinking about what I want to do when I grow up. In fact, that was such a good idea. I still use that idea.
Yeah.
What should I do?
I was going to ask
when I grow up.
how that's going.
But I've never really been able to sit still for very long, and I'm older than most in the cohort, so hobby and work kind of blend together, I think, the older we get. So I've always had a lot of fun working, whether it's working on cars or working on dinosaur bones. So in the future, who knows, maybe I'll just be working PRN, that's sort of like part-time in a hospital, and then moonlighting at a museum. I'm not too sure, but outside of here, I try to keep that Indiana Jones Renaissance man thing going. So working out and being healthy is super important. I had asthma when I was a kid and had to fight through that, so that's a bummer. But staying up on science news, whether it's astronomy or paleontology, a lot of stuff in astronomy right now, particularly with the James Webb Space Telescope. Big stuff is coming from that. So a lot of nerdy stuff, I guess, in other words. And one of my guilty pleasures is movies. That is definitely a guilty pleasure.
Do you have an example? Like, what's one that you watched recently? Because I'm, excuse me, I'm sort of on the hunt for a good movie. I have 2 kids and not a whole lot of free time. So if I'm going to watch a movie, it's got to be worth
Sure.
the 2 hours that I'm going to invest.
Sure. A film that I watched recently, so you can't watch this with your kids, but I watched it in theaters.
That
and
would be the point.
I watched it in the theaters, and I thought, okay, this is a good movie. Then my brain kept bring it back, and so it came on Disney Plus, and I watched it again, and I thought, there's actually a kernel of a very interesting story right here. It was that Wolverine and Deadpool movie, and it's filled with like a lot of action and whatnot, but there's actually a really tragic story in it, and that is this Wolverine character. So there's like a good Wolverine who's amazing, but he died, and then there's this horrible Wolverine who like let everybody down, and it's a journey of redemption. So, answer your question, 1, that's a neat movie, but 2, I like to find things in movies that I can sort of dissect and pick apart and find kernels of really good ideas. I had to work really hard with the Star Wars prequels.
Oh boy, I haven't seen any of those, but I heard they're not great.
Yeah, I had to work really hard for those. But that Wolverine and Deadpool movie, I think, was quite good.
All right.
There's a moment in which this character has to accept who he is, and that is, he's actually a great guy, and he has been running away from that his whole life.
That's a lot of us, isn't it? That's kind of a metaphor for life.
Exactly.
Like, accepting who we are. Like, that's kind of a difficult thing. Something that might take some time for some of us.
Yeah.
But I think once we do, like, not to get too philosophical, but I think once we do, it opens us up to opportunities that we wouldn't have seen otherwise. I feel like that's kind of been my journey getting here to being a professor at Boise State is, being okay in my own skin. And you never know what doors might open up as a result of that.
We are never not where we are supposed to be. That's something I've always kept in mind. We are never not where we were supposed to be.
Isn't that from a
I
movie?
like that.
I haven't. I'm writing it right now. I haven't directed it yet, but you're never not where we were
That's
supposed
next.
to be.
You go from
Yeah.
projectionist to director.
I wouldn't be surprised if you made a movie one
No, me
day.
neither.
I just saw director Douglas. I would believe it.
Well, so outside of here, when I lived in Los Angeles, I did stage work and I acted on stage. And I know, Dave, you have some stage work in your past as well.
I mean, nothing too, not acting.
Well, being on stage
But,
though, performing,
so
entertaining.
Before I became an X-ray tech, before I decided what I wanted to do when I grow up, which I still haven't, just ask my wife. Before I went into radiography, I played drums in bands for a number of years, and I still to this day play, although I don't have much time, as I said, with a career and 2 kids and a huge move and huge career change. Yeah, there's not a whole lot of time, but yeah, back in the day, I played drums a lot. I was on stage. It was my favorite thing to do, my absolute favorite. Still to this day, I love performing. And I think that that's probably why this is a good fit for me, because in a way, it is performance. Like, and you guys are a captive audience. You can't leave. So, yeah, I still to this day love performing on stage. Like, I get little tidbits here and there,
Yep.
like to get on stage behind a drum set, but there is no greater joy in my life than performing. There's nothing like it, and I
Nope.
miss it a lot. I hope to get back into it someday, but it's something. It's part of my identity. It's part of who I am, and yeah, and the muscle memory never goes away. Like, I can go 6 months without playing, and then I get behind a kit, and it's just all back. It's all right there. So it's a gift. I consider myself lucky that I can do that. So
Performing and making people happy, and then having that happiness sort of through osmosis come back to you, there's nothing like it.
it's pretty great.
It is pretty great.
Laura, how about you?
Recently I've been trying to bake and get into baking and cooking just because I don't have a whole lot of free time with being in the program, and so I've been trying
Go
to
figure.
prioritize my free time and do something that's beneficial with it. And so I've been having a lot of fun with trying to make new recipes. I made soup the other week, but it was a lot of fun because I didn't necessarily follow a recipe exactly to a T. It was kind of just oh, I want to add this seasoning. I think that would be good. And I kind of just did whatever I wanted, and it turned out good. And so it was pretty rewarding, and it felt like a good way to spend my time.
That is a
So,
great
yeah.
way to spend
Favorite
time.
meal or favorite?
I don't. I'm a pescatarian, so I don't eat meat, or I eat seafood. So I kind of eat a lot of the same things over and over again. But I like tacos.
Tacos
You
are
made
hard to
potato
beat.
soup?
I did make
Yeah.
the potato soup was really good, very fall.
Well, if you have any experiments that you want to bring in and share with us, you feel free.
Yeah.
I will.
Any baked goods
Yeah,
or
we-
whatever.
Friendsgiving?
Kendall, yeah, there's Radiologic coming up. But Kendall and I, one time in our 105 lab, we made Rice Krispie treats for
Oh,
our
yeah.
lab.
We
We
passed
gave them
them
to
out,
everyone.
so- And Kathy, we saw her too.
Mhm.
All the people in our lab.
Aren't Rice Krispie treats vegan, I've heard? Depending on the marshmallows you use.
We
I
didn't
think
use
they could
vegan
be.
marshmallows.
Yeah.
It could be, right?
It could be vegan, yeah.
Do you guys want to try peanut butter and jelly M&Ms? Ever had those?
I've had.
I want to try.
Yeah, me too. I'm
I've
hungry.
I've had the peanut butter M&Ms, but I haven't had peanut butter and
No, I
jelly.
haven't left.
Oh.
I've asked everyone their
Let's
opinions
try them
on
at the
it.
same time.
Okay.
We'll pass them around. Does this count as pescatarian?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, we all
Douglas,
down the
are you
hatch
gonna try
together.
Okay.
Okay.
Should we
Okay,
go?
1,
Cheers.
2, 3.
Yeah.
Cheers. Let's
Cheers.
go. Yeah. Try out peanut butter and jelly. Hopefully the crunching is coming through.
Yeah, ASMR.
I'm hooked. Where's the rest?
There's a couple.
I'd rate it like a 6 out of 10.
You think?
Mm-hmm.
It's better than I expected.
It reminds me of like Reese's Pieces.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, a little bit. Reese's Pieces with jelly
Mhm.
in it.
Yeah.
I think it needs a little more jelly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've ate quite a few of them, and I felt like each one had a slightly different taste.
Ratio.
Like one of them was more jelly, one
Oh,
of them
yeah.
was more peanut butter, one of them was more chocolate. So you might have to get a whole bag.
I could probably be convinced.
Most of the other people didn't like them, so.
Oh yeah.
I would eat it. Like,
Yeah.
They're not
I would eat
bad at
another
all.
one
If
no
that
one
was in
else
the
will.
food pantry, I would eat it.
I've had worse, but I don't know. The aftertaste is a little weird.
Yeah.
Now
Like I'd rather eat an Uncrustable if I wanted like peanut
Mhm.
butter and jelly.
my kids love those. They have them every day.
They're good.
They're good and easy.
Someone had I didn't partake, but it was like, what was it? A piece of bacon wrapped in caramel and then something like that. And it was split 50-50 for that as well.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Bacon and caramel.
Bacon and caramel, yeah.
Hmm.
Try it.
I would try it.
Yeah, I would try it.
I'd try a houseplant with bacon. I don't care. Bacon makes everything better.
The bacon, it's called Bacon in Boise. It's downtown.
Uh-huh.
They have like bacon samplers. Have you ever been there?
Dang,
No.
you need to go there.
Yeah,
No.
they come in like
You
little.
look so excited.
They're like little test tubes, with pieces of bacon in them, and they have like. I think it rotates, but they have like.
It's like
spicy
flights of bacon?
Yeah, I think it's called a bacon flight actually. Now that you say that.
I gotta go.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
I gotta go. I'm new to Boise, and again, like I'm just gonna blame my kids for everything. I never get out. I never get out of the house. They're wonderful. I would not trade it in a million years. They're incredible people. But it's a lot of time, right? Like when you become a parent, it ceases to be about you and it becomes about them. So I want to be a good parent. So I like to spend time with my kids. I'm weird like that, right? But I don't get out a lot as a result. So like we've been in Boise for 3.5 months, and we haven't been able to really adventurize a whole lot. Like I want to do Table Mountain. Is that it?
Table
Rock.
Table Rock. Thank you. And I think the kids can handle that. It's a bit of a hike, but I think we could make that
Yeah.
work.
Mhm. I think
highly
they
recommend- It's
even
not
have sometimes like you can drive up halfway up the mountain and there's a parking lot. So
Yeah.
We
if-
might need that for my 8-year-old.
One of the first things I did when I came here was, because I came from LA, which is everything you want, whenever you want it, mountains, snow, movie stars, the beach, whatever you want. And so I was missing the sand, and so I typed in something on Google like I want sand right now, where's the nearest sand to Boise, Idaho? And then it came up Bruno Dunes. And so I thought I've been to dunes before, like in Nags Head, North Carolina. And so I drove out there, and you come around the corner, it's like, oh, there's this big dune. I'm like, that's it? That's the dune? It's like, and then way off in the distance are these gigantic mountains that are made of sand. So I don't know if you've been to the Bruno Dunes yet.
I have not.
But I highly recommend it. You don't have to go all the way back and hike and all that. There's this one big one you can walk up. But they also have an observatory out there, and they do star parties, I think, every Friday night.
Star parties.
Oh, that's
That
cool.
sounds like a
I
blast.
want to go to that.
I've been there when I was little, and I remember it was a lot of fun. Me and my family, we brought sleds and
Yeah.
sledded down the sand hills.
Really?
What's
The
really
sand
cool is the
hills.
wind blows in opposite directions, so it keeps the dunes like in place. Because you imagine if the wind is blowing one direction, the dune is just going to blow away, right?
Right.
But the dunes have stayed there like since recorded history. They haven't really moved. It's super cool. And I think these are the largest sand dunes in North America.
Oh, wow.
I think.
Wow.
I think I've heard the same thing.
It's cool.
I know that there are dunes. There are dunes in Colorado too, the Great Sand Dunes in Colorado, which I visited as a kid. But I believe you're correct. I've heard the same thing, that the dunes here in Idaho are bigger.
Yeah, the one you walk up is pretty big, but those ones off in the distance, they're huge. So if anyone's listening to this who is not from Boise, Idaho, check out the Bruno Dunes. It's a nice 45-minute drive out there.
So you never know. Like, that's another thing, like going back to radiology, and I know I've said this to you guys before, but for our listeners, like, you never know where a career in medical imaging will take you.
Mm-hmm.
You might just become a college professor. You never know.
That's one of the things that attracted me to it is I love museums. I love working in museums, but they can be tenuous. And I know folks who've just been laid off, museums have closed. But with this, like, literally, I can find work anywhere in the world if I want.
Yep.
Anywhere, literally anywhere in the world, in almost any city I choose to go to.
That's true.
And so having that as a backup, and it pays a decent salary.
Mm-hmm.
No, you know, we're not being paid as like radiologists.
No,
but,
not quite.
No, not
They
quite.
they have a little bit more responsibility, though.
Just a bit.
So I would like to make that distinction for our listeners as well.
Yeah.
So radiologist, what do you know about what a radiologist is and does? What's your...
They read the X-rays.
Mm-hmm. They
make
go
the
to
diagnostic.
medical school.
Right, they are doctors. They are
Mhm.
medical doctors. And they read and interpret the images that we produce. They have tons of responsibility. If they miss something and misdiagnose, then that could redirect a whole patient's trajectory for their future and their prognosis and their potential treatment. So radiologists got to get it right. The buck stops with radiologists. And there's two different sides of medicine. There's the diagnostic side, and then there's the therapeutic side. So most medical doctors are on the therapeutic side, the treatment side, right? Radiologists are on the diagnostic side. They are diagnosing. They're figuring out what's wrong with the patient so that the therapeutic or the treatment doctors can do their thing. There's a distinction.
And as I get older, I don't want any more responsibility. I've had enough. So not exposing people with ionizing radiation too much is about as much responsibility
As far as you want to go.
I want
Right.
Yeah,
now.
so I actually have a question kind of about that. Earlier this year, actually, my roommate broke his collarbone.
What's that called, you guys?
The
Clavicle.
clavicle.
Very good.
Which
Clavicle.
clavicle?
Right or left?
right?
Do we know?
It was his left.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was it closer to the AC joint or the...
Down here. I haven't taken that class yet,
Okay.
so I couldn't tell you.
What's our angling for
But-
axial clavicle?
We were in the ER. This was actually the first time I saw the mobile. He just wheeled the X-ray machine in.
So you saw the portable.
I wasn't expecting that. And the plate that they put behind or like under you, what is that for?
It's called an image receptor.
Oh,
Okay.
dang, right in
Oh.
there. Yeah, you take it. Go for it.
It's the plate that actually receives the image,
Okay.
and so the X-ray beam, the X-ray
Sends it to
photons.
the plate.
Yeah.
Okay. And I've kind of always wondered this, especially like in the dentist office when you get X-rays. He was getting his X-ray done, and the X-ray tech made me step out, which for obvious reasons, to not get exposed. But that's only one extra X-ray that I have been exposed to. What's the reason for doing that, if that makes sense? Like, how dangerous, because you go to the dentist all the time,
Mhm.
you get X-rays once every other year, whatever.
Sure.
Mhm.
What is the one extra X-ray gonna
Sure.
do to you, or is it just a safety precaution?
Well, the collimation for like a little tooth is about this big
Okay.
probably versus a body part.
Okay.
There's a lot more, and basically when the photons go from the tube, they kind of explode everywhere, scatter everywhere.
Okay.
So your bigger collimation, there's going to be a lot more radiation just going about versus like a little tooth.
So
Not
when
that
you're in the
much.
dentist, only this part is being exposed,
Mhm.
basically? Okay.
Yeah, and so it takes a lot less X-rays and
Yeah,
radiation.
We call it like dose. So
Mhm.
like your patient dose, how much radiation
Mhm.
they're receiving.
And also, I would like to draw another very important distinction, is that when you're at the dentist, or like your friend, he was prescribed those x-rays.
Right.
So x-rays you can think of as a type of medication. They are known carcinogen, so that's why we have to be very careful with x-rays. When you're at the dentist's office, you consent to and you're prescribed those x-rays, just like a medication would be. You weren't prescribed your friend's x-rays and the scatter that accompanies that x-ray. So that's why you were asked to leave the room, is so that you are not exposed unnecessarily. So when you're exposed, necessarily there's a medical reason for it, but not when you're a bystander.
And are those recorded? Is that like taken into account when you're, let's say you break your arm 20 times and you have to get 100 x-rays.
Right.
Is that
so
ever going to play an effect?
It will. It is recorded in one's medical record. In modern, we call them EMRs, or electronic medical records. A lot of times there will be a dose component to any x-ray that, or CT or any other ionizing modality would dispense. Those doses are recorded in the EMR. So it's not going to be perfect, but it will be an estimation of dose received. So I've broken my forearm 20 times. I just can't stop falling off buildings. I never learned my lesson. I've had all these x-rays, and then I've had the C-arm, I've been in surgery, and then I've had the C-arm, and they put plates and screws in there. All those doses are recorded in your EMR. So yes, there is a way to keep track. And then for us as workers, employees that are around radiation, we actually wear what's called a dosimeter. So it's a device that stores X-ray photon energy, and then it goes through this process and goes through a machine, and then it's released as energy, and it can be measured. So you can tell exactly how much dose you've been exposed to occupationally. So we record, it's called a TLD, right? You've learned all about those in lab. When we're in lab and making exposures, anytime we're in lab, we're wearing our TLDs. So we as like anybody that's occupationally exposed, we have specific dosimeters, and then an electronic record is kept with basically the company that administers those devices. So you can go in, like we could go in right now and look at what our dose is so far, and it's considered a very safe occupation. Like we're generally not exposed to it, and we go to great lengths to not be exposed. We don't hold patients. We have devices do that for us. And in like a CT room or something like that, there's leaded walls, the glass is leaded. So we take a lot of precautions to make sure that our doses are minimal. In an environment such as an operating room, in an OR, we cannot shield ourselves from the scatter that comes off the patient. So we wear lead aprons. We can wear leaded glasses. We have thyroid shields that go around our necks to protect our thyroids, because those are more radiosensitive organs. So we take precautions, but we do get a dose if we are around fluoroscopy. We can't help that. But that's why we wear the lead aprons and the dosimeters, so we can keep an eye on our dose. And there's an allowable amount for occupationally exposed individuals. There's a certain amount of radiation that you can receive annually. It's more than the general public, but not much more. And believe it or not, there's background radiation around us all the time. We're exposed to radiation all the time from concrete in the building, because there's radioactive isotopes in the concrete around us. In the soil, there's radiation all around us all the time from the sun. So we're exposed to radiation all the time. We just don't realize it. We're all okay. I'm totally normal.
Fun fact question, if any of you know. When X-rays were first created, do you know what the X stood for?
Heck yes, we do.
It was like unknown. Right?
Yep.
Wilhelm Röntgen.
Yep, Wilhelm
like that,
Conrad Röntgen.
Yep.
Because the rays that he discovered were unknown. Nobody knew what they were, so that's what he dubbed them, because the X is the mathematical symbol for the unknown.
Planet X.
Planet X.
Which is not really out there, but Planet X.
There's a band called Planet X. They're obscure.
Oh.
Don't get me started. If you want to know obscure music, I'm your guy. Do you have any other fun facts or questions? Or you guys?
Yeah. I have one. It's completely off topic. I was going to start off with it, but we kind of just got started. So it's kind of, I'll just read it for you guys.
Yeah, do it up. We're
so
ready.
An alien ship comes down and beams you up and asks, and an alien, they're friendly, asks, come explore the universe with us. We will show you thousands of worlds and countless new forms of life and technology, but one, you can never return to Earth, and two, now that you're in this ship, you can't ever, or like you're leaving right then. You can't tell anyone you're leaving. You can't tell anyone where you're going. Would you guys ask to be put back down to Earth or just take off?
So you'd never get to see. So you'd just disappear essentially.
You're just missing.
Your friends and family.
Yeah.
Nobody knows where you went. You just went away.
Yeah.
But you get to discover
You're
basically
alien
everything.
now. Yeah.
Do they speak English?
Yeah, you can communicate.
Okay.
With them.
Okay. Or maybe telepathy.
Somehow.
Can you have cookies?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Peanut butter and jelly. Can you have food?
Yeah.
You'd have to.
anything.
Yeah, you have to survive.
But you'd have to leave your kids.
That would be tough. I think that would be the hardest part is the isolation.
Yeah.
Like you'd have all these amazing discoveries and see worlds that were unimaginable, but like we as humans, like in my opinion, like we are very social creatures. We need each other. That's a tough one. Yeah, when you put it that way, I'd
Would
never
it?
see my kids
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
Holy moly.
When I was lecturing in astronomy in LA, parents would often ask, how does my kid get into this field, et cetera, et cetera. Then kids would ask similar questions. Do you want to be an astronaut? Do you want to go into space, et cetera? Have you ever gone? And I said, no, I've never gone. I'm sorry. But I stole a line from a film, I think it was Jurassic Park 3, of all places, in which the characters do a thought experiment. Would you rather be an astronaut or would you rather be an astronomer? Both study the stars, but they do it in different ways. And so the astronaut gets this very self-indulgent experience, very dangerous as well. But the astronomer gets to hang back and if they're doing it down in Florida, nice temperate environment, hopefully clear skies, and they get to hang out with their kids, their families, and have a delicious dinner, maybe soup or fish. But that was a question I would pose to the kids: is do you want to be an astronaut or do you want to be an astronomer? Now, most of these kids said astronaut because they're kids.
Yeah.
But still, I would choose astronomer. So I'd stay here on Earth.
Okay.
What about you, Kendall?
I don't know. I feel like I would do it, and then I think about like my mom. I'm like, no, I couldn't. No, it's like my
Yeah.
best friend. She'd be so sad.
I
I'd
think
have to stay.
if I could bring like some people with me, I would go, but I wouldn't want to like just be alone or I mean like maybe there's aliens,
aliens
but
were like cool though.
yeah,
Like,
Yeah, do
I don't know.
the
it
aliens
depends
have
if they
good
were
social
chill or
skills?
I think
Yeah.
the idea
Like
is
they're
that-
pretty hip. We can-
somewhat.
We can listen to music,
Yeah.
maybe have a beer every now and
Yeah.
then. Do they even drink beer? I have so many questions.
Yeah.
I'd want to get to
That's
know
kinda
them
how
for
I
a little
feel.
bit.
Yeah, like, are they chill or
hang out with them and see if,
Right.
see if
Are
I'd
they-
want to
are
be
they-
with them
Are
forever.
they snooty
Or-
because they're so smart? Like, do they have big egos? I don't know. There's so many questions. You've raised. My brain's gonna be tied in pretzels for days now. I can't.
Yeah. I think
I
if
don't
I
know.
could like bring my phone, then yeah.
Bring your phone but not talk to
If I could like call my mom and like go on TikTok.
That is.
I don't think you get reception in another galaxy.
Maybe
I mean,
there's
there's
some
so-
new,
Yeah. What would you do?
Like,
I don't know.
it's really the best 5G
yeah.
mean-
6G.
network. Yeah, it's like 400G.
Aliens are smart. They probably could figure
Yeah.
out
They're
how
like,
to
"Oh,
give
yeah,
you
give me
cell
that." They, like,
phone
look-
reception. We can do that here on Earth.
They look at your phone and they think it's like an Atari 2600. I knew you were the only one that was gonna
Yeah.
get that joke.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it'd be really cool, but also kind of weird.
Yeah. I get motion sick, so that's also.
That would be a
And if I
consideration.
could like
Yeah.
teleport, if I could like teleport, then maybe. But if I had to like ride in a spaceship,
What if you could? That's a good theoretical question too. Like if like a teleporter existed, but say it was only 90% effective, meaning like 10% of the time you wouldn't get put back together the way that you were supposed to. So you might show up on the other end with like an arm coming out of your head or something like that. But you could go anywhere on the planet instantly. But there's a 10% chance you might not.
I would do
Come
it.
back.
I would do it.
I think
Be
about
reassembled.
teleportation every day.
No, same. If I could have a superpower, it would 100%
Yeah,
be
I
teleportation.
think about that every day. Like
Really?
driving to class.
That's a good one too.
We have teleported very simple particles
What?
from one location to the yes. We have.
How do you know that?
But it's
What do you
Douglas, of
mean?
course.
So we have them. We have them, but we're only talking about like literally one particle
Like
of,
one
of
like
energy.
Can't they do like a billion?
No,
particles at once, though?
like a particle of energy.
Like an
electron?
like
proton?
like a photon. Yeah.
Okay.
Something like that. Yeah.
Was this done in the LHC?
No. I can't remember where it was done. LHC stands for Large Hadron Collider. I can't remember where it was done, but it's been replicated.
The what?
The Large Hadron Collider.
That's what I'm thinking
Oh.
too.
It's a gigantic ring in which they accelerate particles, then slam them into something,
Where is
which
this?
we do too,
It's
actually.
a linear accelerator.
Yes, which we do too.
That's exactly what it is. That's
Yeah.
that's right. That's
You know where
X-ray
the
production,
LC
right?
LHC.
The LHC, isn't it? It's in Belgium, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, because my town does something.
So there's more. There's multiple
Yeah.
ones around the
We
world.
use
Some bigger,
lasers.
some smaller.
The LHC, I think, is the biggest one
Yeah.
in the world, right?
Yeah,
but there
that's
are
correct.
there are other particle accelerators elsewhere on the planet.
Yeah.
The LHC is the biggest one.
Mhm.
So yeah, you're right. I hadn't thought of that before. That's how X-ray production works. We accelerate electrons to almost the speed of light, and then they slam into a target. They slam into it. They slam into a target, and then they change energy and they become X-rays, and then that's how we get our X-ray photons. We've learned all about that too.
So I teach some classes at a prison I work for. One of them is astronomy, and the guys there, it's a tough crowd. The guys there often scoff at, well, how do we know X, Y, and Z? And I said, well, because it's based on these theories. Oh, well, it's just a theory. And what I've been able to share with them is we have these theories in X-ray that produce tangible, positive results. And so I've been able to share that with them. That what's a good example of the theory about how scatter works, right? I mean, we don't have a camera that can go close to the nucleus of an atom and see this X-ray kind of loop around, but the theory that we work with describes that, and then we can see the repercussions of it, and then we can tailor that by using grids or something else to make the experience healthier for the patient. So it's always useful in the sciences to deal with the topic of, well, it's just a theory, with something that's very tangible and something that's relatable to people. Have you ever had an X-ray? Yeah, I've had an X-ray. Well, guess what? We're making you healthier based on these nebulous theories that we're working on. So anyway, that was a tangent. Thanks for indulging me.
We're good at that. We're good at that.
Yeah.
What else? Anything else to cover?
I think that's all that I wrote down.
That's all I got.
Yeah.
You guys good?
Well, thank you for being here.
Any parting words of wisdom?
Do your
Something-
homework.
Yeah, I need to do
Study
my
hard.
homework.
Laura, what about you? What's a good parting piece of wisdom that you can share?
Just make sure that you're doing things for you. Like, yeah, school is important and focusing on your future is important, but you have to make sure that you're happy and doing things that you enjoy in
Yeah.
order to succeed.
Quality of life,
Mm-hmm.
for sure.
That's good.
Kendall, any words of advice, wisdom?
I think what Laura said, like quality of life. I feel like a lot of people too in our program that work and do school, I think it's really easy to burn out when you aren't taking care of yourself and making sure you're having fun. Have fun at school. That's what we do.
Mhm.
Always laughing.
Yeah,
Gotta
in
laugh.
class, lecture, and lab, we're
Yeah.
always
Always laughing.
Well, I'd like to thank all of you for being here. I think it was a great episode.
I had fun.
Yeah.
Me
How about you
too.
guys? We know how to party, don't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I learned a lot about you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice to sit down and chat too. Like, despite the microphones, like you kind of get used to that. But it's nice to get to know you guys a little bit.
Thank you for having us on.
Yeah,
It was really fun.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.